Update.
Katie's small voice carried across the room. But where will Theo sleep? Mom's pause lasted a hit too long before she launched into descriptions of a princess bed and toys. I steadied Grandma in the kitchen chair, watching her color return to normal while precious minutes ticked by. By the time I returned to the living room, our parents had spread out across the neighborhood like a virus. Dad stood on the front lawn with our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, handing her a Starbucks cup while shaking his head sadly. Mom had cornered the Johnsons by their mailbox, her hands gesturing wildly as she painted her picture of a troubled oldest child who'd overstepped boundaries. My phone buzzed simultaneously with 3 different crises. Jamie's school needed his permission slip for tomorrow's field trip. Our landlord wanted to know why the rent was 2 days late. The CPS workers demanded documentation of my employment history and financial records, all within the span of 10 minutes. I chose the rent first. Racing to my laptop, I transferred money from the emergency fund I'd built over years of part-time jobs. The late fee would eat into our grocery budget, but keeping a roof over our heads took priority. As I hit submit on the payment, I noticed the bank teller processing it was Cheryl from Mom's MLM downline, the same woman who'd been pushing essential oils at last month's PTA meeting. The emergency lawyer consultation would cost $300, money I'd earmarked for Jamie's SAT prep courses. I booked it anyway, knowing the CPS workers would document this financial juggling as instability. Every choice felt like stepping deeper into quicksand. Dad's composure cracked when Katie ran past him to grab her stuffed elephant, calling him Mr. Tyler instead of Dad. His face went pale, then red. His hands trembled as he pressed them against his temples. The panic attack looked genuine, because it was. Even the CPS workers paused their documentation to watch him hyperventilate into a paper bag Mom produced from her purse. Later, while Dad recovered on the couch with Mom rubbing his back, Jamie pulled me aside in the hallway. His eyes were red-rimmed but defensive. He told me Dad had apologized for missing all his baseball games, that he was trying now, that people deserved second chances. I bit my tongue until it bled, tasting copper while Jamie defended the man who'd chosen business trips over birthday parties, but I couldn't destroy Jamie's hope, not yet. The CPS workers requested medical records for both kids. I retrieved the thick folder from my filing cabinet, the one I'd maintained since taking over their care. As I flipped through it, a faded emergency room report from Katie's 3rd birthday caught my eye. She'd fallen off her bike, needed stitches. The signature line showed my name as the guardian who'd brought her in, proof that I'd been parenting since I was 15. I photocopied it quickly, adding it to my growing stack of evidence. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. I remembered that night. Mom passed out in her wine-stained bathrobe, Dad in Houston for a conference, me holding Katie's hand while she got 4 stitches in her chin, singing her favorite song to keep her calm. That evening, after the CPS workers finally left with their tablets full of twisted documentation, I realized Katie's comfort blanket was still at our parents' house, the one she'd slept with every night since birth. She was already anxious, picking at her fingernails the way she did when stressed. I waited until dark, then crept across the property line. The fence was only 4 feet high. I'd climbed it dozens of times, retrieving balls and toys over the years, but as I swung my leg over the top, a motion sensor triggered. The Ring doorbell camera swiveled toward me, its blue light blinking steadily, recording everything. The next morning brought fresh chaos. Jamie's teacher called, explaining she needed his academic records from previous years to process his college applications. Records that required parental authorization, Mom's authorization specifically, as the parent listed on all school forms. I begged Mom to sign the release forms. She smiled, said she'd be happy to help once this misunderstanding was resolved. Once I admitted I'd overstepped. Once I stopped fighting the family reunification. Aunt Helen arrived that afternoon with coffee and concerned eyes. She sat me down at the kitchen table, the same spot where I'd helped Jamie with multiplication tables for years. Her words felt rehearsed as she reminded me how I'd acted when Grandpa died, how I'd refused help, tried to handle everything alone. I was 8 when Grandpa died. Our parents were in Vegas, unreachable. I'd made sandwiches for Jamie and Katie, kept them calm, told them stories until Grandma could fly in from Florida, but Aunt Helen's version painted me as controlling, unable to accept support, just like now. Mom's Facebook campaign gained momentum hourly. Her post about healing our family collected 147 likes and dozens of supportive comments. When I tried responding with facts, explaining the years of neglect, my comment was screenshot and reported for harassment. Facebook suspended my account within hours. The lawyer I'd consulted sent a formal letter to my parents' attorney. Their response came swiftly. My daily texts checking on Jamie and Katie were being documented as a harassment campaign against a family trying to reunify. Every concerned message became evidence of my inability to respect boundaries. Dad still controlled the kids' health insurance through his employer. When Jamie's ADH medication ran low, I called in the refill only to have it denied. Dad's insurance wouldn't approve it without his explicit consent. He texted me his terms: stop this nonsense, admit I'd overreached, and he'd approve the medication. Jamie's prescription would expire in 3 days. I spent 6 hours at the pharmacy trying to navigate insurance overrides and prior authorizations. Exhaustion pulled at my eyelids. When I jerked awake crying from a stress dream, still in the pharmacy waiting area, the pharmacist exchanged worried glances with her colleague. I saw her type something into the computer, a note about potential substance abuse probably. Sarah had been my best friend since middle school. She'd watched me raise Jamie and Katie, brought groceries when money was tight, held me while I cried from exhaustion. But when she met me for coffee, her hands wrapped around her mug like a shield. Her husband husband had concerns. If I continued this fight, if I kept challenging parents' rights, they couldn't let me babysit their kids anymore. The liability was too high, the association too risky. She cried as she said it, but she said it anyway. The neighborhood whispers started subtly, conversations that stopped when I walked by, eyes that followed me to the mailbox. Then someone sent me a screenshot from our local Facebook group. Anyone else worried about the Theo situation? The post had 89 comments. Neighbors discussing my mental state, my fitness as a caregiver, whether someone should do something. Mom claimed she'd attended Jamie's science fair 2 months ago. She posted photos as proof, her arm around Jamie in the gymnasium. But the timestamp was wrong. The photos were from the previous year's fair. The same week she'd posted Vegas trip photos, cocktails by the pool, while Jamie presented his project on renewable energy to empty chairs.